Hi, and welcome to Mindful, Beautiful, and Thriving, a podcast series by Tharaka Foundation focused on youth mental health. Before we begin today's episode, I just wanted to let you all know that all content that is found in our podcast is created for informational purposes only. This content is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, treatment, or therapy. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified health provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition, and never disregard professional medical advice or delay in seeking it because of something you have heard in this podcast. Thank you so much, and without further ado, let's get started.
Hello, everyone. We are back on Mindful, Beautiful, and Thriving. Today, we are talking about stress management with an undergrad student. And this is a very special episode because Ananya is joining us from India. So, before I start asking her a few questions, I will request Ananya to introduce herself. Ananya, welcome. Would you like to introduce yourself before we start our?
Sure. Hi everyone. My name is Ananya and I'm currently an undergraduate student pursuing psychology from India. And I'm a student who loves extracurricular activities. So, along with my studies, I often indulge in theater, debates, and a lot of things like that. I'm also a part of the Dramatic Society at college. Thank you for inviting me.
Wow, Ananya, that's wonderful to know. Besides academics, you're doing such a amazing work in other areas. So, while taking care all of this, do you feel stress?
Yes, I think there are a lot of times when things definitely get hard, and I believe certainly that stress is a very subjective term. And while psychology has indeed given it a scientific definition, in practice it means very different to different people. But like if I had to say stress according to me, I would probably say that it's kind of a dissonance which is caused by how we expect things to go and the reality of life. So basically, whenever a certain situation doesn't go according to how I expected for it to go, it gives me a lot of stress.
Understood. I agree with you. Yeah, so when expectations and reality they are not matching, you feel stress. So what are your stresses?
Okay, so as an undergrad student and as a person who went through high school, there were a lot of stresses that I eventually tried and overcame. One of the major things that I think as a student a lot of people might be facing is to manage their studies and extracurricular activities, because studies obviously take a lot of our attention and time, but often when we manage extracurricular along with studies, I feel that extracurricular also takes up a lot of your attention, a lot of your time, which can often get emotionally exhausting. So that was one thing that used to trouble me a lot. Apart from that, I feel as a generation which is very much exposed to the internet and social media all the time, there are a lot of things that trouble us related to that. One of them major being a lot of insecurities come in there. Everyone on the internet looks so perfect, they seem to have such great lives, seem to be so productive, and then you see all that and feel like, what am I doing with my life? Why am I not this perfect? you know Another thing which social media used to give me trouble with was procrastination. You often sit on Instagram or Facebook and you tend to scroll so much, and then after a while you realize that the time you could have actually spent doing so much of productive stuff, you just spent it on scrolling. So that kind of gives you a lot of stress afterwards. Another
Wow. Before you
Yeah.
share more, I am amazed to see, and I would like to ask you some follow-up questions. So, like you mentioned about your first stressor, where you said you do have academic workload as well as you have extracurricular activities, and sometimes it becomes stressor for you. So, how do you prioritize? Any tips for our listeners?
So what I basically learned through my experiences was that since both the things are, important and you have to do well in both, you kind of have to prioritize according to importance. If I have a test coming up, I need to plan out that how much time am I going to spend studying and how much time am I going to do in the activities. If my exam is coming, I'll probably give more time to my academics and give less time to the activity which I'm pursuing. So it basically comes on the importance and the urgency of the task. What is coming up earlier for me gets more importance.
Okay, okay, understood. And the second stressor you were talking about the social media, right? And I do understand when you look at perfect life or others, maybe you're comparing yourself, and you were talking about a lot of time goes in scrolling mindlessly. You're spending time. So what do you do about that? Um, any other tips for our listeners?
So I think, in order to limit your social media exposure, you need to be first consciously aware that, you have to reduce your time. So what I do is when I have exams coming up or even in general, I have made sure that I set an alarm and I make sure that I do not spend more than 1 hour on social media a day, whether it be for for Instagram or to watch any series or talk to someone. It has to be within that 1 hour. If you spend more of your time building relations physically with people, talking with your friends or with your family, I think you're going to be much happier, and you'll see that a lot of time that you actually went scrolling, you can actually spend that doing much more productive stuff, much things that you love to do. So I basically discipline myself by setting an alarm.
That's wonderful to know you have decided that window and you're following that discipline. And you were mentioning about procrastination. I think if you are disciplined, you know your priority, so you will not procrastinate and you will hopefully do your task on time and keep that balance. That's wonderful to know. So, any other stressors other than what we talked about?
Yeah, another major stressor that I think is very much related to India being a collectivist society is that you often have very close relations with neighbors and even distant relatives, which often generates discussions on grade related topics. So it often happens that when you give major exams, you're not just stressed about proving to yourself, but rather proving to them as well that you can achieve something. So I think that has been a huge stressor for a lot of Indian students, especially during board exams.
Wow, I agree with you, Ananya. Even I think growing up, I took some of that stress myself because I'm born and raised in India. To some extent, that societal pressure was a motivator also for me, but I understand, when there is too much going on with your family, relatives, neighbors, and everybody is asking you, which college are you going? What are you going to become? It's become too much. So I know what you mean. So, how do you take care of that?
So I think one of the major things that I did was I sat with my mom and we discussed it through, because there were a lot of times when I used to take so much stress and I used to forget that why am I doing this in the first place, right? So it was important for me to have that talk with her and realize that it was more about proving to myself more than anything else. I don't have to worry about what others are saying, because when tomorrow in future I go for a job and I go for studying maybe outside, it's me who I have to manage my life, right? It's me. I have to see how I'm going to lead my life, not other people. So when I don't have them in my life making decisions for me, then why do I have to listen to their opinions? So I have to focus on how I feel about a certain thing, and everything that I'm doing is for myself. So that's what I focus on.
Wonderful, wonderful advice, Ananya, and I fully agree with your mom. You are the owner of your life. Yeah, others They might be your well wisher, they want best for you, they are giving you guidance, but end of the day you need to decide it for yourself. As you're saying, when you need to deliver, you better love it what you do, right? So it's not, you're leading your life on your own norms, on your terms, not other people's norms. So wonderful advice. So now I would like to ask you, what else do you do to manage your stress? Do you have any tools, any other tips?
Yes, definitely. So I'm a big believer that, a good physical health often equates to a good mental health. So I have to make sure that no matter how busy I am, I take out some time to exercise, to take a walk maybe, because if I'm not feeling good about myself, then how will I deal with external problems that come onto me, external stresses that come onto me. So I think it's very important to feel good within yourself first. Along with that, I strongly believe in venting out my problems. So if I had a bad day or if I'm feeling stressed about something, the first thing I do is find someone to talk to my problems about. It could be my friends, it could be my family. And at times, I'm not even looking for a response. I'm just want them to hear me out so that I can lighten my emotional baggage.
That's wonderful to know, Ananya. You do have such people around you whom you can talk to. So I really liked your advice of keeping your body healthy, because if your body is healthy, your mind will be healthy and vice versa. So it seems like you're surrounded by good people who are providing you listening ears. So I will tell you what I do when I do not have anybody around me to share. I just simply take pen and paper and just jot down my emotions, and I feel much lighter and better. And I'm sure you might like to do that sometimes too.
Oh, definitely. Often when people are not there to hear me out, like somebody might be busy or I might not feel like sharing, I think writing it down is a wonderful way to de-stress.
Yes, amazing. So, Ananya, as you mentioned, you're a part of undergrad student doing pursuing your psychology honors. So, any advice other than what you shared you would like to give to our listeners? One thing like of your age, and then second advice, like you have your wonderful mom and adults in your life, so I'm sure the other parents are also listening to podcasts. So any advice for our parents also will be helpful. What they should be doing to give that listening ears or comfort zone to their own children. So I would like to, request you to share advice for both.
Right. So I feel that since I talk a lot to a lot of people around me, my age, so I have often, heard from them that whenever they're going through something, hard or they're stressed about something, a lot of them find it difficult to share with their parents because they feel that they might not understand or they might just treat them as there's something wrong with them per se. So I just hope that, parents are slightly sensitive to the kind of difficulties that children are going, because I feel, we are still exploring a lot of things in this age, and there are a lot of things we might go wrong with and we might not understand. So I just hope that parents can provide that listening ear and be a little more empathetic towards us, and just try and understand things from our perspective as well. And I think just being kind and just, sitting there and being patient would be more than enough to make us feel secure and make us feel comfortable in sharing how we're feeling. And I think if we're sharing how we're feeling, then it'll be a wonderful thing because we'll feel much more happier ourselves as well.
I fully agree with you. I'm also a mother of two teens. Right, so I understand what you're saying, and majority of the time, I'm also trying my best to provide listening ears without any judgment. And I agree, as you said, if my kids are feeling respected, heard, safe with me, they open up, they share more than what I was expecting. And that's how, that communication channel is open. And whenever anything is bothering to them, they like to come and discuss with me. So it was amazing to talk to you, Ananya. I learned a lot from you. I did not know what could be stressors for teens like you growing up in India. And I'm sure a lot of our listeners, whether they are here in the United States or in India, they will also learn from you. And our parents, they will definitely have that tip like you shared. Empathy is a superpower. If parents are empathetic with their teens, they can be much better parent. And then relationship between children and parents, I think a lot of parents, we do struggle, we do want to come closer to our kids, but we do not know how, because one thing is definitely that a generation gap is there. And other thing, like sometimes we become judgmental, and parents, even though I was saying we have good intentions for our children, but sometimes kids might not understand our intention. So you shared so many good tips, and I'm sure our parents as well as our teens are benefited out of this. So thank you so much for spending time with us. Very grateful to you for joining us today.
Thank you so much. And I just wanted everyone to know that it's okay to not be okay and just accept the hardships you're going through, and just share it with people and go around, do what makes you happy. And I just hope everyone lives a stress-free and happy life. Thank you so much.
Thank you again.
You are listening to Mindful, Beautiful, and Thriving, a podcast series by Tharaka Foundation. As part of our youth series, we will be releasing new episodes every Friday, so make sure to continue to check those out. We hoped you enjoyed this podcast, and thank you so much for listening.